Welcome, viewers in Viewerland. For your unbirthday today, I got you a thing. It is a thing called Alice in Wonderland, released in 1985 by Wyndham Classics for the Apple II and Commodore 64. It is, of course, a very loose adaptation of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and also Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There, the classic literary nonsense novels by the Reverend Charles Lutwidge Dodgson, aka Lewis Carroll. Alice in Wonderland was co-designed by children's author Lawrence Yep and Dale Disharoon of Below the Root fame, and runs on a modified version of the Below the Root engine. As such, it has a nearly identical look and feel to that of the earlier game, but is somewhat easier, or at least more generous with hints, and naturally much sillier. As with Below the Root, I grew up with the Apple version, but will be playing the C64 version due to its slightly superior audio visuals. Thus grows the tale of Wonderland, thus slowly, one by one, its quaint events will hammer out until the tale is done, and home will steer a merry crew beneath the setting sun. Let's be off, shall we? Alright, if you've previously seen my Below the Root LP, you can already tell just how very Below the Root-like this game is, including our start menu here, so let's go ahead and get started and we'll look at some of the similarities and differences. Just like Below the Root, we have a pretty standard side view of things. We can, of course, walk around. The Commodore's load button on the joystick will cause us to jump. And immediately after jumping, we will hit the ground running at a greatly increased rate of speed. We can also crouch and crawl. And perhaps most importantly, by holding down the button and pressing down on the stick, we get a menu. And a lot of this is the same as it was in Below the Root. We can examine things on the ground, check the inventory, offer something to someone, pick things up and drop them, use or eat things. Now over here is where we'd start seeing spirit abilities in Below the Root, things like pensing, gruntspeaking, kineporting, and so on. But of course Alice is not in the right setting to do any of that kind of stuff, so instead we have a bunch of conversational options. Ask has a sub-menu in which you can ask about a couple of different things. There's coax, try and sort of wheedle something out of them. Offer help, try and calm them down. You can sing, but you have to learn some songs before you can do that. Alice does not start out knowing any songs. We can tease them, argue with them, try and scold them. Menu just takes us back to the main menu. Renew is an option that was also in Below the Root. That takes you back to a checkpoint and you lose one day. Sound is just to turn the sound on and off, of course. And this shows you what day it is. Below the Root had, I think, a 50-day time limit. This one also has a 50-day time limit. We'll get into a little bit more of the reason for that when it comes up. For now, we'll start exploring. I'm late. I'm terribly late. I'm disastrously late. Oh, but I'm too young to be a pair of earmuffs. Here's another difference. In Below the Root, no one would communicate with you until you actually chose to talk with them. In Alice in Wonderland, every character has an introductory line that they'll say as soon as you get close to them. Also, in Below the Root, you had to be standing right next to someone to talk to them. In Alice in Wonderland, you can use any of your conversation options in the menu from anywhere on the screen. And who, pray tell, are you? The White Rabbit, General Flunky to Her Highness, the Queen of Hearts. And where am I? This is the last time I ever borrow the Mad Hatter's hat to fly up here. Not really an answer to our question, but interesting information that the Mad Hatter's hat gives you flight powers. And why are you doing that? What do you care? You're much too big to fit in the rabbit hole, unless you stoop. And that's just a little explanation of a game mechanic that we'll be dealing with fairly soon. Oh, don't be silly. I'm much too busy to play. I have to find the rabbit hole. You'd be a big help if you just got out of my way. Calm down, Rabbit. That's easy for you to say. What if we tease him a little bit? What an unpleasant creature. I do hope you're an only child. Oh, burn. I take issue with that. The caterpillar told me that you can't top a top hat when it comes to answering riddles or taking vacations. Well, I suppose it would be handy for taking vacations if it lets you fly. Answering riddles, though, we'll have to keep that in mind as well. Don't we all have problems of our own? Alright, well, nice meeting you, Mr. Rabbit. Let's continue on our way. Now, if we try to go through this hole, we'll be informed that we're too big and this door is too tiny for us to enter. If we crouch down, we can go through. That's why the rabbit told us that we couldn't fit through the rabbit hole unless we stoop. Just a basic game mechanic there. But we don't have any reason to go in here yet, so we'll skip it for now. And here we see a big difference between Alice in Wonderland and Below the Root. In Below the Root, if you made any contact with water, it would send you to your home and say you were found near the water, time has passed, and you would lose your place in wherever you were exploring, and you would lose a day. Alice, on the other hand, can swim. Nothing to fear from the water whatsoever. Alice, you left your parasol in my boat. Thanks. Who are you? You wound me, child. I'm the Reverend Dodgson. Oh, hey, we get to chat with Lewis Carroll himself. And where am I? In my storyboat. I like stories. And why are you doing that? I like rowing. It helps me think of stories. And indeed, before it was ever put into book form, the story of Alice in Wonderland was one told by the Reverend Dodgson to Alice and her sisters while they were rowing in the Thames. I don't have time to tell a story today, but you can find wonders of your own if you look hard enough. That's a lovely sentiment. Could you use a little help with anything? I'm quite capable of rowing myself. That's good, because I have 7-year-old child arms. You'll need your parasol soon. You never know when you'll fall down a rabbit hole. Foreshadowing. Let's tease the Reverend a bit. No, other people know me as Lewis Carroll, but I'm still your old friend, the Reverend Dodgson. That's sweet. But I'm feeling argumentative. You'll have a story later. Now take your parasol. It may help break a fall. Oh, so that's why you thought it was important if we went falling down any rabbit holes. That's not a very normal use of a parasol, but good to know. While it's sitting there in the boat, we can take a look at it. It is a darling blue silk parasol. Last but not least, we'll scold the good Reverend a bit. Don't be cross, Alice. Your sister will have sweets and maybe something to tell you. Hey, I like sweets. So let's yoink our parasol, and we'll be on our way. I should note that the game treating the storybook character Alice and the real-life person Alice who knew the Reverend Dodgson as one and the same person is a little bit strange because Lewis Carroll denied basing the story Alice on any child in particular. Whether that's credible or not, I couldn't say, but that's what he claimed. We see our first clock here, and time is very important in this game. There will be many clocks scattered throughout, and in many occasions we'll need to keep an eye on what the time is. We'll take a closer look at that when it comes up. Come, Alice, practice your French. Ah, this must be our sister. But we should probably check on that. I'm your big sister, you little goose. That's about what I thought. But where am I? Don't play the fool with me, dear. You're by the Thames River. And why are you doing that? I teach you French so you'll be smart. I don't know that those are really synonymous, but having an extra language or two under your belt, never a bad thing. Remember, the mutton is pleased, le gigot est content. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I was always a Latin kid when I was doing my language classes, but you get the picture. Good. You may take the tin of candy as a reward. I also have to observe that whether I pronounced it correctly or not, that is a strange sentence. I never really associate mutton with being happy. I more associate it with being dead. Anyway, let's see what she gave us. It is a little tin filled with dried fruits covered in sugar. And we now have a tin of comfits. Can we help you out, sis? If you haven't seen him already, that nice Reverend Dodgson has your parasol. He's in his boat. Way ahead of you there. Aren't you the sweetest little thing? Aren't we indeed? Except when we're being difficult. No, I don't know the French for ha ha ha. I think it's le ha ha ha. I know it's a nice day, dear, but no day is too nice to learn a little French. Well, I take issue with that. Don't be cross, dear. A little French is always useful. I don't know. Is it useful if you're washing the kitchen floor? Anyway, we'll continue along. And find our way into a mill. There's nothing actually important in the mill here, but we can use it to try out a few more mechanics. Just like in Below the Root, we can climb ladders and stairs, and jump off of them. And now that we have the parasol, we can also glide. The parasol works exactly the same as the shuba did in Below the Root. However, unlike the shuba, we don't have to worry about damaging it. No matter how banged up we get, the parasol will never break. Which, given that the shuba like to break at the most inopportune times, is a great relief. And now we find ourselves back where we started. Well, now that we've explored all parts of the regular old world, let's take a little trip down the rabbit hole. Looks like there's something on the wall here. Hear ye, hear ye! By order of Her Royal Highness, the Queen of Hearts, do not enter without candy. This means you! This is the game's way of saying you're really gonna need that tin of comfits. Fortunately, we've already gotten it. Also, if we try to make this with a normal jump, we're gonna come up a little bit short. So you also have to have the parasol to proceed any further into the rabbit hole. Let's see what's in this door. Why, it's a lovely ballroom. You can leave the way you came. How rude. Who are you to talk to me like that? The royal musician. I welcome the queen. Could it be that Queen of Hearts we just read about? And where am I? In the grand ballroom, of course. Well, ask a stupid question, I suppose. And why are you doing that? Tea break! Tea break! Kind of a non sequitur, but maybe he's just tired of being questioned. Well, tough shit, we're gonna keep interrogating. Can't get around me that way. I've done quite well without you. That's easy advice for you to give. You don't have to play for the queen. I suppose he's got me there. You'll enjoy the pantry more. There's marmalade there. Suppose that's worth looking into. But I don't like your tone, sir. I have to wait for the queen to come through these doors. Only she has the key to open them. You like to babble so much that you must have been born in a brook. Okay, full marks for that. Pretty good burn. Now what's up with this weird shimmery door over here? Not only are we told we need the queen's key, but just trying to go through dumps us on our head. Oh well. Moving right along. You see this tiny gap in the floor? This is a major point of no return. Once we fall down that hole, there's not going to be any way to get back for quite some time. Last minute save. Little halo jump for Alice. That sign looks like it might be a little too inviting, but hey, who are we to question? What have we got here? Oh, a lovely nursery. No one around, but we do have a sign posted. It is an embroidered sampler that says puppies like to play fetch. Well, that's no great surprise, but could be handy to keep in mind. And over here? Ah, the pantry. We were just hearing about that. It is a jar of marmalade covered with small paw prints. Well, it's ours now. And the sign has turned itself around. Wanted to be really sure we got our hands on that marmalade, didn't it? We've got a door up there in the upper right, but let's check out our other options first. Door through there that we could crawl our way toward. And off to the left, we've got a rather ritzy looking door. Let's try that one first. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see, can we find our way up to that higher one? We can. And we find ourselves in the Lewis Carroll study. He's got a study down the rabbit hole? There's a little bit more to the Reverend than meets the eye. It is a magnificent book. The first page says, "Beware of false looking glasses that lead to deceit and danger." This book confused the hell out of me as a kid. Instead of false looking glasses, as in fake mirrors, I read it as false looking glasses, as in fake looking spectacles. And throughout the game, I was keeping my eyes out for like a pair of Groucho glasses that were really gonna mess with me. Ah, looks like the fireplace here is actually a door. Let's poke our heads in and see what happens. Curiouser and curiouser. It's helpful to know that things don't always go to logical places in Alice in Wonderland. Fits in with the tone of the book, of course. Mercifully, there are no horrible door mazes. There we are. Looks like we've got another route further into the rabbit hole, but doesn't look like there's any easy way back up, so let's poke our heads into here first. Ah, a music room, lovely. Okay, I won't step on your tail. Who are you, anyway? A mouse with a sad tail. I'm sorry to hear it. Where am I, anyway? In the music room. Sometimes the musicians leave crumbs. Well, we did meet a musician earlier, but he was kind of a dick. Anyway, what you up to? He's hungry. Okay. Don't be tedious. Why is everyone so rude around here? That's kind, but I'm really feeling a bit peckish and I lost my jar of marmalade. Now this brings up the mechanic of giving things to characters. If you offer something, and they give you the message, surely you can do better than that, that means they do want something, but they don't want this specific thing you just offered. If they don't want anything at all from you, you'll get a different message. Let's exhaust our conversation options first, though. It's just that there are cat hairs all over your dress. I suppose that would be a bit disconcerting for a mouse. Let's tease him about it. There's no use doing that. I like that. Who came barging into whose room? He's got us there, but we'll still yell at him about it. At least I don't stink of cat. Well, Mr. Mouse, I think we've gotten off on the wrong foot. Here, have some marmalade. I feel so happy I want to sing. And thus we learn our first song to the tune of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. We can now sing that to anyone we want, although of course in most cases it won't be very useful. Farewell, Mouse. If you want to win this game, you have to go through Wonderland and become a queen. And so we get the actual object of the game. We have to make our way through Wonderland, become a queen, and eventually make our way back out of Wonderland. Good advice, but who are you? The person who knows that you have to be very, very large to reach some things that are up high. That's kind of an odd answer, but he's not wrong. You won't be going anywhere unless you're small enough to get through the small doors. You seem to have a bit of a fixation with stature, don't you? Ta-ta! I'll see you when you come back for the Dormouse's tea party. I wonder if that's what's going on in that door to the right. I don't see any way of getting there right now, though. Don't be ridiculous. There are enough people who already are. You're obviously not a cat person. Alright, calm down. You shouldn't do that, it could be habit-forming. I'd be more worried about getting a song from the mouse. Well, if you followed down this far, that would be a little tricky getting back up there, but you could always use the renew command. You would lose a day, though. My, but people do make the most interesting pets. You needn't get huffy with me. Although he didn't provide a straight answer to the question of who are you, you've probably guessed that this is the Cheshire Cat. And we've got another posted notice here, so let's have a look at that. It is a full-color poster with the words, "See the museum displays. A ferret, curator." That's in reference to another mechanic that I will introduce you to when the time comes. It doesn't look like we can take this thing from the table here, but perhaps we can give it an eyeball. It is a brass stereopticon. Through its viewer, you see a three-dimensional picture of a child listening to a seashell. A little bit of foreshadowing there. Ah, an exit. Maybe we can finally get out of this crazy mixed-up world we've fallen into. Or perhaps not. This looks like some kind of bench here, but it's actually a very tiny door. Too tiny, in fact, to get through even if we crouch. We can exit off to the right where there's another really tiny door. And to go back and forth between these two screens a little faster, we can use the full-size door in the middle. But it seems that we're kind of stuck unless we can get through some of those tiny doors. So let's take our exploration upward. That key on the left, keys are always valuable in games like this, but I don't really see a way to it right now. But what have we got on the table over here? It is a cute little sponge cake in the shape of a clover leaf. The icing says, "Eat me." There's more of that rudeness. For that, I'm shoving you into my pocket. Wonder if we could make the glide to that fireplace from here. Let's give it a try. Nope, not quite. We seem to be running short on options. I always seem to think a little better on a full stomach. Oh. My, Alice, you've grown. And so we introduce a very important mechanic of Alice in Wonderland, changing your size. Large Alice has a much more impressive jump. She can't crouch to any meaningful degree. She just kind of puts her hands over her heads and stays almost exactly the same height. And she is unable to climb ropes, although ladders are still no problem. With her improved jump, we should be able to make this distance. Whoops. That's if I don't walk off the edge. Perfect. And what have we here? It is a bottle of elixir with the words "Drink me" etched into the sides. Whoop. There we go. I'm playing this with a PS3 controller's left analog stick, which is not perfect control for a game like this, so occasionally I'll miss the menu options that I'm aiming for. Okay, well, that worked out for exploring a little bit of the upper floor. Still not too sure about how to get through these tiny doors, though. That cake did leave me a little parched. Aha! If there's a way to grow, then there's a way to shrink, and we have discovered it. Maybe if we take in another one. So tiny. Ahem, the door happens to be locked. That's probably what that key off to the left is for. I really like two things about this. First is that Alice trying to open a locked door apparently drops her on her head for some reason. And second is that when she gets dropped on her head in tiny form, Alice looks kind of like a mushroom cloud. Maybe this one isn't locked. Much better. We can pick up a few more cakes here. Tiny Alice's terrible jump wouldn't get us up to that cake there, so we'll go ahead and grow again a little bit. Whoop. Few more size items. And if we drop down here and glide a little bit to the left, there is our lovely key. We're getting the hang of this. By the way, you don't have to worry about running out of size-changing items. There are lots of them throughout the game, and if you really burn through tons of them unnecessarily, there are a few kinds that respawn. And now that we have the key, we can make our way through to the Pool of Tears. If I recall correctly, in the book, the Pool of Tears was created when giant-sized Alice just got fed up and frustrated with some of Wonderland's bullshit and started crying, and because she was gigantic, her crying created a large pool. The game, of course, doesn't try to recreate a complicated sequence of events like that, but just a little background for you. Anyway, Alice has had a pretty busy day. She's met with some very odd characters and learned how to grow and shrink, so I think she could probably do with a little rest. I'm glad you've joined me on our adventure into Wonderland, and I hope you're enjoying it so far. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon for another episode. This is signing off. Today's Seeing How Deep the Rabbit Hole Goes has been brought to you by Justin Carpenter, Nolden, Zangamarth, Anonymous Benefactor, John Madigan, Sanguine Games, Misha Van Doren, Frank Grizzy, Tim J., Lolo De Puzzlo, Joshua C. Ritchie, Jared C. Rice, Sonic Rose, EX Potemkin, Alicia Goranson, Mechasaurus, DG Jono, Doug Russell, August Fortnite, Patrick Bellinger, Andy Kurland, Joe Rogue, Martin Schallenmakers, Mayo the Hedgefox, Hildegard Argelmach, IGV, Jazel, Joseph Hall, Hot Mayo Sandwich, Dan Larson, Electric Keat, K. Ivan Rupert, Tiny Shopkeeper, Charlie Dunst, Kikoskia, Kobo4231, Alex Beyer, and other patrons of variable magnitude. Thank you all immensely for your support, and thanks as well to everyone out there, be you commenter, subscriber, or just plain watcher. Always a pleasure, may the coming week be good to you and yours, and I'll see you again real soon. Take care.